One.
This week, we welcome back Scott Weeks from Recluse Cigars. John, Cigar Surgeon Reiner, is our special guest co-host. As in our Debonair Ideal segment, we talk about cigars in Canada. Plus, we'll catch up on all the happenings with John on Cigar Federation and go through our smokes of the week.
This is a Security Weekly production. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where cigars burn slow, ashes fall fast, and cocktails flow steady. It's the Stogie Geeks Show. Brought to you by CAO has brought you iconic cigars over the years. Brasilia, Italia, La Traviata, done in a playful nature with a unique twist. Travel to the exciting world of CAO and back in just under an hour with any of the groundbreaking CAO World Blends. Test the boundaries of style with new age brands in the 95 rated Flathead. Honor the past with new classics like Pilon. Treat your palate to an array of flavors with Soulfire and Moon Trance. At CAO, the experiences are limitless. So what's your next move? The highly sought-after Punch Rare Corojo is back for 2016. Rare Corojo is made with a dark Sumatra wrapper and fillers from Honduras, Nicaragua, and the Dominican Republic, giving you a powerful yet rich smoke. These highly coveted and revered cigars are only made in small quantities once a year, so get them while you can. This is a punch classic that you can't pass up. M. Bombay cigars represent the most admired cigar culture of Cuba. They select the best of the best quality tobacco to use in the aging process. M. Bombay cigars are then rolled in Costa Rica by some of the most experienced cigar rollers, giving it a unique smoking experience. The band portrays the detailed and artistic nature of our small industry. Try the M. Bombay Casera, M. Bombay Mora, and the recently released M. Bombay Habano. M. Bombay Cigars, where the cigar is a way of life. Duran Premium Cigars, one of the fastest growing boutique cigar companies, providing smokers a portal into the old Cuban tradition of perfect balance and the lost art of progressive flavor construction. Roberto Pelayo Duran began his career in tobacco over 2 decades ago in Havana, where his reputation grew within Cuban circles. The creation of Duran Premium Cigars has given Roberto the platform to introduce a series of cigars that offer the same quality, construction, and detail which he perfected while in Cuba. Brands include the ultra-premium Roberto P. Duran Premium Cigar Series, Azan Cigars, Nea, and Baracoa. Duran Cigars uses a seed-to-humidor approach, as all tobacco is grown on their farms and rolled in their factory in Estelí, Nicaragua. Rollers have been carefully chosen to carry out Roberto's precise method to ensure progressive flavor in each cigar. Duran Cigars invites you to make their premium your standard.
Welcome, everybody, to the Stogie Geeks Show. This is episode 190. Will Cooper from Studio C in North Carolina manning the controls. We have Mark and the team up in Rhode Island powering things from the G-Unit studios. And Paul is not here tonight. As folks who may or may not have heard, there's a new member of the Stogie Geeks family. Paul and his family have welcomed Luke Asadorian, who was born last week, and from all accounts, everyone is doing fantastic. Paul's doing some bonding time there, and for folks keeping score at home, Paul and I now each have 3 sons, but I kind of have about a gap on him. My last one was born almost 16 years ago, so I'm going to let Paul kind of go for that title, if you may. But we are not alone. We have brought in a special guest co-host, all the way from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. We have the man who's known as the Cigar Surgeon, also known as the Conscious Canadian, Mr. John Reiner. John, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Coop. Thanks so much for having me on the show. I listen to you guys every week, and it's interesting to be on the show. And being a part of the Stogie Geeks is always good times. Although Paul's got some big shoes to fill, I'll do my best to catch up in drinks and make it entertaining.
Well, thanks, John. And John, for folks who know, he's from Cigar Federation, where he is a moderator. He is the co-host of Sharing Our Pairings, and he's also, I guess, you fill in on some of the other shows from time to time, correct?
I do, yeah. I mean, we've got everyone, everyone's got a real job. They work for a living. So every once in a while, Logan's away or Rob's away, and I fill in, although I'm sure I'm not half as entertaining as the banter between Logan and Rob. I do my best.
Oh, man, it's like with those two, it's like, how can I put it? It's like, I don't want to say, I guess it's like Abbott and Costello.
Absolutely.
It's Oscar and Felix,
Yep.
Yeah,
it reminds you of that classic 50s style television where you don't even need to write anything. You just put them on the air and the rest will just fill itself out.
Exactly. And we'll get into all the happenings. We'll talk with John. He'll catch us up on things in Canada as well as things on Cigar Federation in a little bit. John, actually, what are you smoking tonight?
So, of course, because we have a great guest on tonight, I kind of went digging through my humidor. I'm like, I must have a Recluse cigar. I have to have a Recluse cigar. And sure enough, I do. I'm smoking the Draconian. It's the Robusto, the 5x52. It's got that wonderful box press. And, you've heard me talk about this in the past. Box press is kind of my jam. It just fits so comfortably in the mouth. And this is actually my first Draconian. And you can see I'm smoking it pretty fast. I'm almost halfway done already. It's going down a little too easy. I need a second one on standby here.
It's an excellent cigar. We're going to get into that now. Recluse is known. They have several lines. We'll get into that. I'm smoking actually something really special. I'm smoking the Recluse Amadeus Habano Lancero.
Mr. Fancy Pants and his Lancero there.
Which I couldn't get them up to Canada in time, so we'll have to work out a way. I already have people asking me for it, but so without further ado, I'm going to introduce Scott Weeks from Recluse Cigar. Now, I want to just kind of say an intro thing. I know Scott for a long time, and I consider Scott not only a friend, but he's a guy who actually helped really shape my palate. I was a very one-dimensional smoker before I met Scott, and Scott was at the time working as a representative for several leading cigar companies, and he really opened my minds to a lot of brands. So Scott's a good friend, and I credit him a lot for really helping improve my palate. Scott, Will Cooper in North Carolina, John Reiner in Calgary, Alberta. How you doing today?
If I was doing any better, I couldn't stand it, man. Too blessed to be stressed. I got the Recluse Amadeus Habano Reserva Lancero, just like you. Birds of a feather flock together, man. Amazing cigar.
It is. I actually got to smoke this about a week ago for the first time. I was with Scott in Atlanta, and every time I get a cigar, I always want to smoke it on a clean palate because that's how I am. I want to kind of respect. And then I lit up something else because I'd already had like 4 cigars that day, and Scott's like, "You got to smoke that thing." And I gave you a whole bunch. I'm like, "Yeah, but I want to have it." So I said, "All right, obviously I want to be respectful." I lit that cigar up, and like I said, you wouldn't have known I had 4 cigars because I was getting so much amazing flavor from that cigar. So this is, I guess, a line extension from your the Recluse Amadeus Habano Reserva line, which since you've been on the show last time, this has been the 4th line that Recluse has introduced, correct?
That's correct, yes.
So now I guess I'm doing score at home. This Recluse is now heading into its 5th year of business, right? So you guys have been around a while.
Yes, once we actually put the factory into construction was actually 6 years ago, and we released our first blend 5 years ago at IPCPR Orlando.
Yep, and you've built up a very impressive portfolio. The Recluse Amadeus Habano Reserva, you introduced that about a year ago. And this is, like I said, I think really, and you've done some great releases, Recluse, but this one is amazing. Why don't you tell us a little bit of backstory about this blend?
Well, we created in 2014, we created a blend called Recluse Amadeus, which is a Connecticut cigar with an Ecuadorian Grade A Connecticut wrapper. Grade A is, every year the farmers, they grade their leaf A through F, and that's how they price it. And A is considered perfect and without flaw. Now we made that blend, and the blend did so well. All of our blends have done well, but this blend, the Amadeus Connecticut box press, just set off all kinds of records for the company. And so people said, "What are you going to do next with the Amadeus? What are you going to do next? What's coming down the pike?" So it got me thinking. How am I going to top this? Because the Amadeus Connecticut is such a phenomenal cigar. I was just trying to figure out, how in the world are we going to be able to level this up and make it even better? And so I started concocting the blend and mixing and matching some different things. I wanted to stay true to the base blend of the Amadeus, but then figure out a way to get more out of it and enhance it and make it a little more complex. And so we used the Ecuadorian grade A Habano wrapper. And instead of the Sumatra binder that we use on the Connecticut, we use a San Andreas Maduro binder, which is a difficult task because that binder doesn't burn as well as the San Andreas. It doesn't burn as well as the Sumatra. So we had to figure out a way to be able to use the flavor and use that binder and still be able to get the same burn qualities as we did with the Sumatra. And we figured out a scientific method that's all natural to be able to get that San Andreas Maduro binder to burn the same as the Sumatra. I hope that wasn't too confusing. But since we came out with that in 2015, we were very honored by Cigar Coop. I hope I didn't, step on a landmine mentioning that. But we were very honored to be in the top 30.
Top 20, actually. You were in the top 20.
Actually, yeah. I think, Will, you do a top 30, right? But we were in the top 20 of that 30 of the top cigars of the year. And we were very honored for that. And we also made a #1 cigar of the year by a very well-respected operation, which I won't mention.
No, you can mention it. They're friends of ours.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, great. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't, like
not at all.
stepping on a landmine. The Cigar Authority Radio and Two Guys Smoke Shop, they've been picking #1 cigar of the year since 1992. And they don't have a #2 or a #3 cigar. It's either #1 or you're done. So it was between us, Tatawahe, Perdomo, Camacho, and Avo. And then there was the Recluse Amadeus Habano Reserva. And I was like, I know we got a great cigar, but how in the world are we going to pull this out? And lo and behold, when they came up with the, they called us and said, "Hey, you need to come be on the show because guess what? You guys made Cigar of the Year." I tell you what, man, I almost passed out. I was like, you got to be kidding me. So here we are. We got a big trophy. And, we gotten a lot of mileage from the retailers because of the Cigar of the Year. I don't want to get long-winded. I know there's several of us here, but I'm very proud of this because like Will said, I spent 20 years as a rep on the road representing a lot of other people's brands. Most brands that your listeners see on the shelves today, between me, my dad, and my grandfather, 90% of them we've repped at one time or another. And we took a lot of pride in that. And since I took all that knowledge and compressed it and tried to figure out a way where I could make it better from all the different manufacturers, every year since we came out with our first blend, the OTG, every single year we made a top 25 list. Our OTG made top 25 cigars of the year the first year we came out. The Draconian, which I believe Mark is smoking, that made 2 top 25 lists in 2013, and I believe that was one of Cigar Coop's top 30. And then in 2014, we were in the top 25 on another site for the Recluse Amadeus, the Connecticut. And then, like I said, this last year, we were very honored to be on Will's top 20, and then also on Cigar Authority and Two Guys Smoke Shop, #1 cigar of the year.
Yeah, and I'll make a comment on. I'm not going to name this person, but if there's another member of the media who I do know, and basically, if I like this cigar, he won't like this cigar. Or if he likes this cigar, I won't like it. I mean, we couldn't be polar opposites. But we happen to be, and there's nothing bad against this guy or anything, but we happened to be talking one day, and he said, hey, have you smoked that Recluse Amadeus Habano? And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's a fantastic cigar. He goes, let me tell you something. That's a cigar to really watch. He goes, I agree. So, and it's like kind of weird because we never have that common ground. And I thought, Scott, this cigar gave you
I think I know who you're talking about, and if that's the case, that's news to me. That blows my mind, man. So,
yeah, it's true.
yeah.
It's true. Yeah. And again, that's just, it's just, again, I think it speaks for where this cigar kind of hits. And I thought when I first had this cigar, Scott, I remember when you gave it to me, the immediate reaction I had is it fit a niche in your portfolio because you had the milder Connecticut, very flavorful milder Connecticut, and then you had the two Maduros with the OTG, which I consider like medium plus, and the Draconian that John's smoking, which I consider more full. And this was like that perfect medium spot. Was that what you guys were aiming for with this cigar?
No, we call it unintentional genius. No, I'm just, I'm kidding. You're basically, Will, what we do and what I've learned is, I mean, we could go out and chase all these different rabbits, and never catch any of them. Because if you chase too many rabbits, that's what's going to happen. You're going to spend all your life chasing and you're never going to catch any of them. And so my blending philosophy is this. Me and J.R. Dominguez, we're partners in the Tabacalera Leyendas Cubanas factory, But my blending concept is this, all right? When we blend a cigar, we blend for flavor. But if the cigar does not have the smoothness of, like, you see all these different instruments in a symphony orchestra, none of them can be out of sync with the others. Otherwise the musical piece is horrible for the ears. When I blend, I make sure that every different segment of the palate, whether it's the salt or whether it's the acidic or whether it's the sweet, every single area of the palate has to be stimulated at the same time, working in a symphony to create a great musical piece. And as you will notice, and if I'm wrong, I will shave your hairy butt and kiss it because I heard it's hairy, okay? But if I'm... Every cigar that you have ever smoked of ours, anybody, I'll throw it out there for anybody because there's a lot of hairy butts out there, right? They've all been smooth and they all are flavorful. And that comes into sync with our fermentation practice. We have the best fermentation in the world. We ferment all of our filler and our binder, which for your listeners out there that don't understand fermentation, basically that's every tobacco leaf in the world has ammonia in it. Okay, and you got to get that ammonia out. And how you do that is you wet down the bales of leaf, and as the moisture evaporates out, it starts bringing traces of ammonia out with it. So the more you do that, the more it's going to come out. Now, most factories ferment for anywhere from 1 to 6 months. Our factory is the only factory in the world that ferments all the filler, all the binder for 2 years. Okay, so what that does is that gives you all the flavor of the blend, and at the same time, it'll be one of the smoothest cigars you ever smoke. Because we don't want to make cigars that make people squat to pee. We don't want to make cigars that make people dizzy. We don't want to make one and done cigars. We want people to enjoy our brands for the beautiful musical masterpiece that it is to the palate. And that's what we do. And I will not blend a cigar that is going to knock anybody's dick in the dirt. Okay, that's not what we do.
Will Cooper here, episode 190 of Stogie Geeks, joined with Scott Weeks of Recluse Cigar. John, do you have a question you want to ask?
I do, Scott. So you've got a pretty fleshed out portfolio now. You've got a cigar that kind of hits all the marketplace niches from the Connecticut shade all the way up to the Brazil Maduro. So at this point, do you focus on a line extension, or do you focus on just developing the brands that you've already solid performers for you?
Well, as you guys might know, when we came out with the OTG, we came out with it in, let's see,
10?
10 to 13 facings. And then we added and so we have those facings available in all of our blends, but we don't promote those facings in all of our blends. We basically promote the Robusto, the Toro, the Tarantula, the Sidewinders, and the Canoes, which, I'll be happy if I'm asked later on to describe the Sidewinders and the Canoes. I'll do that. But we actually heard here first on Cigar Coop. We actually are in the process of a major line expansion. 9 new blends, extensive facings.
Wow.
Board. Of course, I'm not at this moment. I'm not going to disclose all of those different blends and what they are, but we're going to have because we sell all over the world. We don't just sell in the United States. Okay, so we are going to have close to 165 facings available to anybody, everybody that wants to have a Recluse, a certain type of Recluse, this Recluse, that Recluse. We're going to have it. I know it's blowing your minds.
So, I mean, my first reaction, Scott, I mean, is that being driven by some of the challenges now in the FDA and the regulation?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, I mean, that's I guess something that you're trying to get ahead of the curve in terms of. But how do you introduce all that to the market? In the short amount of time frame.
It will all be at the IPCPR show this year, and you'll be able to see it there. We are going to have it. It's going to be ready, and we will have it packaged, presented, ready to rock and roll at IPCPR Las Vegas, the end of next month.
So you haven't really been sleeping lately, is what you're saying?
Oh, I sleep like a baby. You know why?
Why is that?
Because, everything that we do and everything that we try and put our hands to, we try and do it with the best intentions possible. And we try and make, as you notice, our prices on our cigars, our blends, we don't try and gouge the end consumer on our prices. Our prices are extremely reasonable, from the $5 petite Corona, $6 Corona, all the way up. All of our prices are good. We could have come out with higher prices and still sold our product, probably cigar for cigar, the same as we did now, and made more profit. But, we wanted to make sure that we offer a good price product that's an exceptional cigar to the end consumer, something that they can find and purchase on a regular basis. And, I don't stay up on, I got to tell you something. Everybody has a gift, whether it's to be able to sing or whether it's to be able to figure out complex scientific problems, or whether it's to be able to act or, play an instrument, whatever it is. My gift is to be able to create. And so I know it's going to seem very hard to believe, but these blends and these concepts of these 9 different blends and the different things that go with them, I was able to create and conceptualize and blend all 9 of these blends within 10 days. Okay?
Wow.
That's the brand names, the everything that goes with it, the coloring, the packaging, everything within 10 days. And it was blends that I had already had in my mind that I've wanted to execute for years. Concepts that I've wanted to execute, but I was able to take that and stick it in a bowl of chili and come up with making it even better than I conceptualized it. And me and JR worked feverishly to get this end result, and we're at the point to where the first shipment's about to hit the United States.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, now, you mentioned it earlier on, the factory, and I know you were on the show last time. You talked about the expansion of the factory. Is that completed at this time to support this?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It would have to be. Otherwise, our rollers would quit on us.
Exactly. I was like, so yeah, that's great news. So you guys, as far as capacity goes, you guys know you can go in there and handle that as well.
Yes.
Okay.
And the reason is because we our fortunately um, our incubation period in the business when we first started was able to be supplemented because of the family ties that JR has with his dad. And his dad is Joselito Dominguez, who's a dear brother to me. We don't have the same mother or the same dad, but I mean, we're about as close as me and my biological brother are, if not closer. And, his dad, Joselito Dominguez, makes about 20 million cigars a year. So our factory's on that same compound, and we were able to use a lot of resources in the beginning from that compound and that area of the compound. And as we grow, we're able to pull from those resources and retrain some of those rolling teams into our way of rolling, which is all entubado or entubado or entubar, whatever each person has the way they want to say it, but it all means tubing on the rolling method instead of folding. So we're able to retrain them on our way of doing things. And we can have, if Cigar Aficionado gave us a Cigar of the Year rating tomorrow, we would be able to pull 300, 400 pairs of rollers, okay, and retrain them and have them producing cigars within 2 weeks, okay, and be ready to rock and roll to supply the demand. That's a family integration that few people have the opportunity to take advantage of, and we have that ability. So if something goes nuts for us tomorrow, and all of a sudden somebody decides, hey, we're going to put the blessing on Iconic Leaf Cigar Company, Recluse Cigar, and, we're going to make them the next super duper big thing, then we can pull from the resources of our integration and be able to answer the call.
Excellent. Now, you mentioned over 100 types of facings. Now, really what I've seen with the Recluse philosophy is, for the most part, you've gone with box press cigars, as well as some of the creative sizes, which we'll talk about. You have done a few rounded cigars, right? I want to say the Tarantula, right?
We did one round cigar.
Yep.
And it wasn't just the size, it was the size in only one blend. And you were correct. It was the Tarantula, which is a 6x60.
Yep.
And for some reason, at the time when we created that blend, that 6x60 worked better in a Parejo round format than it did in a Prensado box press format. And so we left that one as a round cigar. But every other Tarantula that we've created in all of our other lines has been box press.
Yep. And then now there's a second, because I'm smoking the Amadeus Lancero, which is a traditional Lancero, right? Which is rounded.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually I could have done this cigar box press, but I felt like it was like peeing on the door of a church with this cigar, because the Lancero is a connoisseur cigar. It's got a story. Every cigar's got a story to tell. You can't, jump chapters. You got to read the book page by page, And the Lancero has such a wonderful story to tell. I mean, I could have made it burn slower, burn cooler by doing the box press, which is the purpose of the box press to begin with. But the Parejo format in this is just absolutely amazing. I didn't want to make a Lancero, okay? Because our rolling philosophy is entubado, which is rolling each filler leaf by hand instead of folding them like a road map. And so to roll a long, skinny cigar with 100% entubado roll is very difficult, because you have to understand that not only is it difficult, but the rollers get paid based on how many cigars that they roll, okay? And so not only does your cost go up because you know your roller has to take more time to roll that cigar to get it perfect, and he's going to roll less cigars in a day, and you have to up his wages to make it worth his while to roll them. So your cost goes up. And also, because of how difficult it is, you do have some waste. You have some cigars that don't meet up to the perfect standards, and you have to discard them because we don't sell seconds. Okay? So we have to discard them, or we have to go back and try and unroll the cigar, which takes more labor, and start all over again. So this cigar is a labor of love. And my very good friend, Will Cooper, is my very, very, very good friend. Okay.
Okay.
My very good friend, Michael Weiss, who is the proprietor and franchise owner of Smoke Inn in Wellington, Florida. He just has been like one of the biggest fans and biggest admirers of the Recluse Amadeus Habano Reserva. And he said, Scott, I got to have that cigar in a Lancero. I got to have that cigar in a Lancero. And he kept beating me up about it, and he kept bringing it up. And my rep kept calling me, Scott, he won't leave me alone. He keeps talking to me about this Lancero. And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to the factory, so let me just see if I can, figure out a way to do this into bio and make it perfect, because I don't want anything less than perfection, because that's what we do. And so JR and I played around with it, went back to the drawing board several times, and we made this amazing Lancero. And so I told Michael at Smoking, I said, listen, this cigar is absolutely fantastic. You pushed me to do it, so I'm going to give you the exclusive on it until the IPCPR show, and then we're going to release it. So Michael bought a ton of them from us, and we shipped them to him, and he's the only retailer in the United States that has the Amadeus Habano Reserva Lancero up until the IPCPR show.
Which Smoke Inn is that, Scott, again?
That's the one in Wellington, Florida.
Okay. Yep, so for folks who want to know the Smoke Inn in Wellington, Florida, you could definitely give them a call. So, Scott, it sounds like they already have them on the shelf, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, they do. Now, you might get Michael to part with some of them, but you have to talk sweet to him, because he smokes these all day, every day, and I'm not quite sure if he bought them to sell them. But I do know that my rep has told me that he has sold them to some people, so you could probably call down there and talk to Michael, and if you're very nice to him, he may part with a bundle of them.
Yeah, and I've smoked this now. I've had a few of these, and I can tell you from my perspective, this is a box-worthy cigar all the way. If you're a Lancero fan, if you love a good Habano blend, you're going to want to get your hands on this cigar. This is a very good cigar, Scott. I'm not the biggest Lancero fan. I even was scratching my head when you told me you were going to do a Lancero, but this is a fantastic cigar, and I mean that.
Thank you, man. Did you smoke the Amadeus Connecticut Lancero yet?
Yes. It's very good.
That?
Very good. I liked it a lot, too. And I think it did a real good representation of the blend in that Connecticut as well, because it's tough to, I find, of any Lanceros, the Connecticut ones are the ones that usually miss with me the most. Yeah. But it was just, because sometimes you get some of that bitterness or sourness from the wrapper, but not with this cigar.
Yeah. Well, what I did with that cigar is, that'll be at the IPCPR as well, but what I did with that cigar is, one of the lines that I used to represent is My Father Cigar Company. And their My Father Lancero was one of my favorite cigars. And Alcides is one of the people at My Father Cigars. Whenever we would end up at the same place at the same time, and he knew about it, he would always bring me either a box or a bundle of the My Father Lanceros, because he knew how much I liked them. And so when I created this Amadeus Habano Reserva Lancero for Michael, I said, you know what? I don't represent My Father Cigars anymore, and they don't send me any more boxes or bundles of these, so let me see if I can create a cigar that I like as good or better than that particular cigar. And so I worked on that cigar, the Amadeus Connecticut Lancero, until I felt like it was a cigar that I enjoyed as much or better than that other cigar. And so that was a labor of love for me as well.
Excellent. So that's a cigar that the Amadeus Lancero in the Connecticut shade that folks can expect to see at the IPCPR.
Yes, that's correct.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Will Cooper, episode 190 of Stogie Geeks. Our special guest is Scott Weeks from Recluse Cigar. John, I'll turn it over to you for another question.
Thanks very much, Coop. So obviously, and Coop kind of alluded to this, that blending the Lancero, of course, provides some unique challenges. Can you talk a little bit about, Scott, maybe what is your favorite size to blend and some of the unique challenges that goes into blending a Lancero Vitola?
Okay, well, my favorite size to blend is the Toro because the a lot of people don't know this, but most manufacturers, when you want to try the true representation of a blend that the manufacturer had in mind when he first started the blend, it's best to always try a Toro because it's the middle ring gauge between the uppers and the lowers, and then they can get an idea of where that blend's going to go one way or the other. And so the Toro is always the size that I blend on when I start a new blend project, and then you have to tweak it each different direction. Now the Lancero, because our cigars, our Amadeus cigars have 4 leaves in the filler, are very difficult. Lancero with 4 leaves in the filler and rolling them into bow, most factories wouldn't even do that. Okay. Most factories don't ferment for 2 years. Most factories won't box press a Connecticut because it breaks the wrapper. Most factories won't do an intubao Lancero that has 4 leaves in the filler or an intubao Lancero, period. Okay? But we try and do everything in the best possible way that it can be done so that the end consumer, when they smoke one of our cigars and they take it for that ride, they read the book, they want to go back and read that book again and again and again because they know there's no other story like that one. So I know that I get long-winded on a lot of answers, and I apologize, but I don't apologize for being very, very passionate about what I do. Now, the Lancero is a situation where we use Dominican Ligero, which is top leaf, Viso, which is middle leaf, and Seco, which is bottom leaf. And then we use a small, which is the most complicated part of all of it, a small part of Pennsylvania broadleaf. Now, Pennsylvania broadleaf, if you use too much of it in any cigar, no matter what the ring gauge is, it completely overpowers the cigar, and you got to get it just perfect. Okay? But to do it in a Lancero, everything that we do with our Lancero, most other people would consider impossible. Okay? To put 4 leaves in it, to roll it into bow. Okay? To try and use Pennsylvania broadleaf in that narrow of a shaft and be able to get it to where the flavor is perfect and it stimulates all the senses of the palate and nothing overpowers the other. This is the absolute epitome, the pinnacle of a perfect cigar that has achieved the impossible. That's what it is.
So Scott, you brought up a few good points. Is this a 38 ring gauge or 40?
38 ring gauge, 7 by 38.
Okay, that's what's amazing. Okay, because you hit a lot of good points in there when it comes to Lanceros. A lot of times we hear the stories they have to pull one of the leaves out, or they end up taking it up to a 42. But you were able to do this with the 38, which I think is amazing to hear that, because I've heard so many of the stories when folks have had to take their blends to a Lancero, what they've had to do.
Yeah, a lot of people will, when they see a cigar, they say, "Oh, that's round. It's a Lancero," and on the surface, you can draw a mosquito to a bug light with the packaging and everything else. You can put the 3D holographic bands. You can do the boxes to where they look amazing and they draw light from everywhere in the humidor. But the thing is that you can draw the mosquito to a bug light, but the cigar's got to make them want to come back and get zapped again. And they look at a cigar and they think of it, it's round and brown, or it's square and it's brown. But until they hear somebody like me on a show like this talking about the impossibilities that are achieved and the intricacies that go into it to bring out the end result of being able to visually look at the impossible and to be able to enjoy it, they don't really understand it. And so that's why these shows and you guys are so important to guys like me, because it enables us to actually get the story out so that people understand what is in the book that they're starting to read.
No, exactly. And that's one thing that, like I said, folks like you, and there's a lot of companies too, that when they tell us that backstory, it helps us understand the cigar a lot better when we smoke. And I know I can speak for John on that as well.
Absolutely.
Yep. John, I'll let you, another question.
Yeah, so Scott, and I don't think a lot of our audience members necessarily appreciate the big deal it is to have filler tobacco, all the tobacco fermenting for 2 years, because, you know, people don't really understand necessarily how complex that is, because you're not just worrying about cigars for those 2 years, you have to worry about the next 2 years after that. Can you talk a little bit about maybe the relationships and the strategizing to think sort of long term about how that takes place?
Well, you know, thank you. I broke it down in what I thought was a very, getting to all the nouns and leaving all the verbs out about fermentation, but it's much more complex than just wetting down the leaf. You know, you don't just go in there and dump a bunch of water on it and wait for the water to evaporate. You know, it's very time consuming to ferment leaf. You take, bales of leaf and you put them on pallets, and then you have different sections of that leaf that are on the pallet, and you have to, you know, take a couple of, let's say you got one pallet and you got 3 sections, the top, the middle, and the bottom. Well, after you got a long thermometer that goes down the center of the pallone, and then the pallone is the bale on the pallet, and then once that pallone gets up to a certain temperature, okay, then it's time. Then there's a lot of it's hit peak evaporation, okay, which is peak ammonia release, and then you have to take the top of that bale. You have to take it, maybe put it in the middle of another bale or on the bottom, and then take the middle and put it on the bottom or the top, and then take the bottom and put it on the top or the middle of another one, and then you go through the whole process over again. And you have sprayers that have a certain type of water in there that's filtered, and you spray down the leaf as you're doing the cycles of the bales, and then you stick that thermometer back in there that's about 36 inches long, and then once it gets to that point, then you start the process all over again, okay? And so this is time consuming. It's labor intensive.
And expensive.
It's very expensive because of the labor. And when you look at our prices, if you were to get a forensic numbers guy like myself, and you were to get them in to look at all of the different things that we do and the price that we sell of our product at, they would be like, how do you guys squeeze a nickel and make a dime fall out? You know, how do you guys do this? What's your secret? Because with everything that goes into making of the cigars and everything that we do with the entubado and the fermentation and the box pressing of the Connecticut's, which it takes a ton of time, these things cost money and they cost time. And so to ferment leaf, to go back to your original focus of the question, for 2 years, that's why nobody else wants to do it. Okay? Because they can use a different blend, and they can get a smooth character out of that blend that hasn't been fermented as long. But the reason why our cigars have so much flavor and they're smooth is because we use great leaf. We don't have to dumb it down because of our lack of fermentation. We can use great leaf that has tons of flavor, and then we can ferment it for 2 years, and then that's the magic. You get a cigar that has all the flavor of one of these cigars that, like I said, will knock your dick in the dirt, but you get the smoothness of some of the smoothest cigars in the world. You get the best of both worlds at a price that's ridiculous for what we do.
You mentioned, Scott, some of the labor-intensive stuff that you're doing, and that kind of segues to a couple of the sizes that I think have been real innovations that you've done out of the factory, and that's the canoe and the sidewinders. For folks who may not be familiar with those two shapes, why don't you talk about those?
Well, can I grab a couple and I'll talk while I'm walking, and then I'll be back within 15 seconds. Is that okay?
We absolutely.
I've got them sitting right there, so I'll grab them and then I'll bring them back to the camera.
That is no problem. I mean, this is live camera here, but
We invented back in 2012 and 2013. We invented two new shapes that have never been done before in the history of the cigar business, because we don't want to create niche cigars, just cigars that are unique. We want to create new thought process, a new level of creativity that has maximum function to it. We don't want to just create a cigar that people say, oh, that's cool, I'm going to buy one of those, and then the cigar is, okay, and, then the novelty wears off. And, what we do is anything that we create, whether it's the Sidewinder or whether it's the Canu, it has to have an amazing function to it that makes sense scientifically, and it has to be an amazing cigar. Otherwise, it's not worth messing with. So, in 2012, I live on a lake, okay? And so outside of my door, outside of my backyard, I see kayakers and people on canoes and motorboats and skis all the time. And, I was sitting out on the back deck one day, and, I was thinking about where the company's going, because we were just getting started. And I was thinking about things, and I was smoking a cigar. I was smoking the OTG because that was our first blend. And I saw a couple people coming by in kayaks. And I started to think, with the functionality of a box pressing, which is compressing the airspace in the blend, which forces the cigar to burn slower and burn cooler, and combining that with the functionality of a Perfecto, which the wrapper to filler composition changes as you smoke it, there might be some really great functionality there and flavor transitions. So what I did was I created a shape called the Canu, which is K-A-N-U, and it combines the functionality of a box press, a square press, with the functionality of a Perfecto. So what you get, and then again, it's fermented for 2 years. So what you get is you get a cigar that has the slow, cool burn of the box press. And then it has 6 different flavor profile changes from start to finish, 3 on the way up and 3 on the way down. And then you get the smoothness from the 2 years of fermentation. So you get a cigar that has the functionality of about 5 different cigars into one. And we make it in a 5-inch, a 6-inch, and a 7-inch. And those retail for, MSRP before any, state tax or anything like that. They generally retail for like $10.25, $10.95, and $11.95 for the 8x58. And they smoke for 1 hour, 2 hours, and 3 hours, respectively. So that's been a really big hit for us since we first started.
Love that cigar.
Yeah. And then we created in 2013, we created a cigar called the Sidewinder. Now the Sidewinder combines the functionality of a box press cigar, and this is even done in Connecticut as well. Okay, so that's difficult enough as it is, but it's round. If you can see it in the camera, it's round on the front and the back of the cigar, and then it's square pressed on the sides. And the way we designed the cap, in the camera it looks like a box press cap. And that's pretty much what it is. But the way that we did the cap in the rolling process, all you have to do, you never have to take a cutter to smoke this cigar. All you do is take the cap, you squeeze it, and the cap pops open. And it pops open where the flap just comes right off. And because it's rolled into ball, it has a perfect draw every single time. So you never have to take a cutter with you to smoke the Recluse Sidewinder. And we make it in all of our blends. The OTG, now we make it in the OTG, the Draconian, the Amadeus Habano Reserva. And this cigar sells like tampons and Q-tips. It's ridiculous. We've done some events. Okay, we did one event down in Florida. Okay, and there was probably over 1,000 people there, and we had stacks of sidewinders on the table. And when I do events, I don't like sit around and just do this to people and say, hey, what's up? Here's a cigar. I tell them about fermentation. I tell them about intubao. I tell them about the story of the cigar. Well, during this event, about halfway through, people were coming over, and I started telling them about fermentation. And they were like, hey, that's all great and everything, but show me that popping cap on the cigar. You got that cigar with the popping cap? And so after about 15 minutes forward, after halfway through the event of trying to explain to people, I just started breaking out the cigar and say, hey, here's the cigar with the popping cap. Look at it. And they're like, oh, where can I get a box of those? And so we completely sold out during that event. They had to call some of the other stores to bring inventory in. We sold out of that, and then we had to pre-order boxes. We sold more during that event than just about any other manufacturer that was there, and they were all there, all because of that popping cap on that Sidewinder. And that's just been an amazing cigar for us marketing-wise, and it's an amazing cigar functional-wise, and the flavor. Every one of these is a 57 ring gauge. It comes in a 5-inch, a 6-inch, and a 7-inch, and retails for $8.50, $9.50, and $10.50. Now, on our base sizes, they retail for $5, $6, $7, $8. But on these specialty sizes, they retail for $8.50, $9.50, and $10.50.
And Scott, just one point on that, and I think you told me this before. When you guys designed the Sidewinders, the popping cap was a byproduct. It wasn't something that you guys went in planning on, right? It was something. It happened.
That was Secret Cigar Society information, man.
Uh-oh.
now you peed in my Cheerios. You outed me, man.
Circle of trust, Coop. Circle of trust.
People aren't supposed to know about that. That's unintentional genius.
I just broke the rumor of teaser free rule.
No, actually, what happened was at first it was an accident, and 4 or 5 of them popped like that. And so we went back to the rollers because half of them did and half of them didn't. And so we traced them back to what roller did what. And there were 2 different rolling teams that were rolling them in a different method on the cap. And so we realized that these guys over here that were doing it a certain way, it was a complete accident on the cap. But after we saw that, we realized, hey, this is the only way we need to roll these going forward, because that's a great selling technique. How many people go out and they left their cutter in the car and they're out on the golf course and they're trying to use their fingernail or they're trying to bite the tip off the cigar and it's getting all jagged and everything? These are cigars you never have to take a cutter with, ever.
I can attest to that because I've smoked quite a few of them and I've been able to pop every one of them. John, any other questions? Because I have a couple to close out then.
For sure, Scott. I just want to talk about your branding strategy, because I think from the very start with the OTG, you've had a very consistent and clear and elegant branding strategy with your bands and your boxes. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, is that done in-house, or do you guys have external people that do that? Can you share a little love there?
That's thank you, man. We make all of our own boxes. Okay, all of these boxes are made in our factory with 3D holographic hot stamps. Okay, we have all of our own ribbon, our own cellophane. We even hand make I can't turn this over because it's got a bunch of ashes in it, but we even make our own ashtrays with 3D holographics. We make everything in-house. The only thing that we don't do, we make bands in-house for retailers all over the world, because we do a program called Factory Production Runs where we make boxes and brands for retailers. But on these Recluse blend bands with the 3D holographic, that's the only thing that we produce that we don't do under our roof, is those bands, because of the 3D holographic foil on it. And because of the success with the Amadeus Connecticut, we started out just making the word Amadeus in 3D holographic. And then when we came out with the Amadeus Habano Reserva, we did everything, the bands, the boxes, everything with 3D holographic, and people just went nuts for it. When you walked into the humidor, it was like the cigars were plugged into the wall. people could be looking over this way, and they're going to see the Amadeus Habano Reserva, whether they like it or not, and it's going to change colors as they walk past it. So we decided now that everything that we do, every band that we produce that says Recluse on it, every box that we make is going to be in the 3D holographic.
That's awesome.
So
yeah.
now that's as far as shelf marketing. Now, was that what you were focusing on, or were you focusing on any other type of marketing?
Well, I think that was the main focus. I mean, you know, and I think you kind of touched on it, that when you have someone in the humidor, it is very important to catch their eye, because you've got a very, if they're not familiar with the brand, you've got a very small moment of time to get their attention and hopefully draw their attention to your cigar, and then hopefully the tobacconist at that shop can take over from there.
Absolutely. And what I learned as a rep for all those years is that, you know, the retailer has a lot of brands in his store. And there's a lot of retailers out there that are doing an amazing job for manufacturers, especially guys like me. But they can't go in there and recommend your brand to every single customer that comes into their store, or they're going to look biased. Okay? Or the end consumer is going to think, well, I wonder what kind of kickback that guy's getting, and it's going to hurt his credibility. So he can't go to that brand every single time with every single customer. So the way we do it is we bring the mosquito to the bug light, okay, with our presentation and our packaging. And then we let, like I said earlier, we let the cigar make them want to come back and get zapped again.
Scott, so, all right, I got one more question here. So you mentioned there's a lot coming out at IPCPR. I know you can't get into specifics, but maybe is there anything you can kind of give us a peek on in terms of maybe what to expect?
I can tell you this: everything is done with within our existing portfolio. So the expansions will be blends, variations of what we have. There won't be a totally new, like, there won't be some type of, let me figure out a way to put it where it makes sense. There won't be a Recluse, you know, bologna fried chicken or whatever, you know. It'll be a Recluse OTG so-and-so, a Recluse OTG so-and-so something else, a Draconian something else, a Amadeus something else. So all of the blends that will be coming out will be done within the family of names that we already have. There'll be expansion blends of those names.
That's good. I mean, they're tried and true blends, so that's excellent. Excellent. And then just a couple quick hits on the Lancero for folks. I got a couple questions on here. This is it a 7x38 or 7.5x38?
7x38.
And what are the box counts? Yep.
See that?
You see that? Yep. And what's the box count?
24 in a box.
24 in a box.
Yeah, everything that we make, every size, every shape, except for the canoe, comes 24 in a box. The canoes come 20 in a box.
Awesome. Awesome. Scott, thank you so much for your time, as always, the support over the years. You know, I know I'll be seeing you. I'll probably catch up with you before the show, but if not, we'll definitely see each other, and I'm looking really forward to all the exciting things you have coming at the show.
I always look forward, Will, to any time that you and I can be in the same zip code. It makes me feel good just to be hanging out with you. You know, there's a lot of great people in this industry, but sometimes I just, you know, I would rather hang out with you than just about most other people in the industry. So anytime, anywhere, any place that we can be in the same zip code, I'm there.
Thank you. Same feelings mutual, Scott. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
We'll be back in a few minutes, and we'll have our Debonair Ideal segment.